Person one loves person two. Guess what? Shenanigans ensue. Person one hates person two. Guess what? Still shenanigans ensue. Person one fake dates person two. Guess what? You guessed it. Shenanigans ensue. Co-host one reports to co-host two. What's the name of the show? Shenanigans ensue. Yeah. Hello, I'm Jasmine.
And I'm Jane.
And welcome to Shenanigans Ensue,
A podcast where, don't you love New York in the fall?
Each episode we'll watch a rom-com and discuss its merits as a member of the rom-com genre.
We'll cover well-worn classics, hidden gems, and everything in between.
We're here to give you our unsolicited opinion on every trope, caper, and flim-flam the film used, or in this case, abused. And of course,
the shenanigans. You're coming salty right from the start.
Listen, when it's warranted, you gotta go right in. So this episode, we're looking at You've Got Mail.
Which is definitely a well-worn classic, but as you'll soon realize, hasn't perhaps aged the best.
And I knew it wasn't going to. Like, it's You've Got Mail. Anyone who says, I have an @AOL.com is a boomer, right? That's the thing. So...
Buckle up, Jasmine is salty today.
I'm so salty about this damn movie. Okay, listen. So I came in feeling real nostalgic because, listen, that dial-up was a thing of my childhood.
Wow, that dial-up tone.
Yes.
Oh, man.
I do have kind of a soft spot in my heart for the dial-up tone, and then everything went downhill from there.
But before we get too deep into things, let's do a quick plot synopsis.
Oh yes, the synopsis, before I continue to demolish this movie with my opinions. Okay.
We made a promise up front that we would neither just hate on a movie nor just love on a movie, so we're going to find a way to toe the line here.
I will. There were like 3 things I liked. Okay. Joe Fox and Kathleen Kelly are both in the publishing industry.
Joe and his family run a massive bookstore chain, and Kathleen runs a small generational bookstore around the corner.
They are also forming an anonymous online romance, just by chance. They met each other in a chat room, and now they're writing emails to each other. It's the 90s.
Their in-person relationship becomes more antagonistic, while their online relationship becomes more romantic. Shenanigans ensue.
Shenanigans ensue!
Yay! General thoughts.
Jeez Louise.
So, to say up front, I think I don't feel as passionately as you do about this movie because you are very familiar with a musical this movie's based on.
I don't even know if it's that. I think I would still feel this irritated without the
musical?
Just, it has its moments. There's some really great jokes. It is obviously saved by Tom Hanks and Meg Ryan. If it's not for them, then this movie has practically no redeeming qualities at all. But it's rough.
To be honest, it was. Look, if this is your favorite comfort movie, no hate, no shade, watch the things that give you comfort. But I was surprised by how frustrated and upset I was watching this movie. And as we said at the top, we know a lot of things aren't going to age well, but so much didn't age well. Like, it just made it really hard to watch. And I think because this movie held like such a place of nostalgia for me, I was even more disappointed by it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. In my head, it's in the great classics.
Yes, 100%. And it's set in fall, which is my favorite season to be in New York.
Absolutely, they got that 100% right. It is currently fall in New York, and I love it.
Jealous.
I can't wait for the leaves to change.
I'm a summer person through and through, but my favorite season in New York was in autumn, largely because New York in the summer smells very much like pee.
Facts.
And so autumn is just my favorite.
On the surface, I really think there's probably a way to cut out 30 minutes of this movie and make it something worth watching.
More than 30 minutes.
Right? Maybe 45.
This movie is almost 2 hours long.
Yeah, it's a little too long.
I remember texting you at the point where he stands her up at the restaurant. So he online arranges to meet with Kathleen, and then Joe shows up at the restaurant as she knows him as Joe and like starts antagonizing her. And I thought, okay, we're at the reveal. He knows her identity now, and we have about 20 minutes left for them to get into a fight and then reconcile, and that's the end. And when I checked the time, there were 45 minutes left.
Oy.
And I was thinking to myself, like, what more is there? It took so long to wrap up.
One of my bullet points in my notes is 30 minutes left, question mark, exclamation point, all caps. Wrap it up, folks.
I think we must just sit down and do a super cut of this movie.
Yeah. I think there's like an hour, 15-minute cut that would make
Yes.
this a very, very good movie.
And the first thing that I would get rid of that we'll touch onto when we do the tropes, but is the fact that both of them are in romantic relationships at the start of the movie, and it really doesn't add all that much.
I know, we always talk about this.
Yeah, because it's our least favorite trope.
You can't, that's not a fun thing.
It's not fun. And
least favorite trope.
both of our least favorite tropes, because they either have to make the lead's romantic partner so unlikable that it's like, why is this person with him in the first place?
Mm-hmm.
Or you're putting your lead into a position where they're like dicking over a really good person.
Yeah.
So it just, for me personally, it never works.
Yeah, that they've done this terrible thing. They're technically cheating, they're writing, they're flirting on the side. They wait until their significant others have left the house and then sneak away to go check their emails.
Yes.
Like, that's so sketchy.
And it's played for laughs, which I get. We didn't have the language to talk about emotional affairs, but they're waiting for their significant others to leave.
Right.
It means that they know it's not right. So it's not just like an innocent friendship thing, you know?
And so that bothers me a lot, and that's right off the bat. And I think, you know, the fact that they haven't met in person and it's literally just emails is the one redeeming quality, that they met in a chat room. It was kind of accidental, and they became pen pals in a way.
Yeah.
But
Which is fine.
pen pals is fine. I think building the fact that they wait for their partners to leave is part of the discomfort.
Yes. They are conducting a full-on emotional affair.
Yep.
And you know, everyone has different opinions as to what constitutes as cheating, and that's something that you should discuss with your partner. But I'm sure both of their partners would agree that this isn't right in some way. whether or
Tom
not-
Hanks' partner would probably have been like, emails, whatever, because I like her. Which brings me to another important part.
I'd like her more if she wasn't written so one-dimensionally.
Well, that's the thing, is I like her better because she acts like a New Yorker. Are you...
Fair.
You expect me to believe Meg Ryan grew up in New York City and is that much of a doormat?
It was the 90s.
So she should even be harder than that, because 90s New York was rough. So there's no excuse for her to be that impossibly saccharine sweet.
Maybe they were going for the grumpy and sunshine trope. I really don't know. But speaking of tropes, let's get into a couple of them. So we have enemies to lovers, as we've spoken about, romantic leads already in relationships, unsuitable romantic partners, an overly amicable breakup, hidden identity. He's a good guy because he's good with animals and children.
Oh gosh.
Grand romantic gesture. I knew you'd like that one.
That one irritates me. I already got really angry. I feel my temperature rising.
Grand romantic gesture, reading the book / watching the movie the other person loves, and stuck in the elevator.
So yeah, I guess what do we want to hit on first?
Don't sound so eager, Jazz.
I don't know why this movie irritates me so much. I'm so sorry.
It really pressed your button.
If somebody loves this movie, I feel really
I
bad.
don't feel as pressed as you do, so I'm just enjoying it.
I hope that you'll hear what I'm saying and understand where I'm coming from.
Or maybe just skip this episode.
Yeah, that's fine. I'm totally not offended. I don't have to like the same things as everyone.
We did say that this is our unsolicited opinion, so where should we start? I feel like we've covered the romantic leads already being relationships. A little bit about the quote unsuitable romantic partners, Kathleen and Frank. they're singing for something at a piano and they can't like sing together at the same time. So that's showing, ooh, they're not suitable. I'm sure there are other things. I can't remember.
Yeah, they seem well suited, but they're on different wavelengths.
Yeah, and with Tom Hanks and his girlfriend, they're like sort of living past each other. They're like not really listening to each other. Look, as I've said, neither of us are huge fans of this trope in any case. But it's a well-worn one.
But again, they should be good partners. They're both business sharks.
Yeah.
They know that it's business, it's not personal. In those ways, in their career goals, they're very, very similar.
Yeah.
But somehow it's not right.
Do you want to talk about the enemies to lovers?
Yeah, this is really, really fun. So, like, part of the thing about this story, which I had looked this up, I'm familiar with an old musical called She Loves Me, which is very, very fun. And it's actually based off a story written even earlier than that, which is called Parfumerie, I believe. And so it's the same thing that, you know, two people hate each other. This guy's going to put the shop girl out of business. That's why it says shop girl.
Yeah.
That's very key to the original, and then also the She Loves Me musical version. But they somehow find a way of writing letters to one another, and they don't know who they are. And I like the modernization with the writing emails to one another, because that makes sense. There was a time period for any like younger people who might be listening where you would be on AOL and you would go into your instant messenger and you would chat with your friends digitally. Maybe you were feeling crazy that day and you went into a chat room and talked to strangers.
Ooh.
And so you really would meet strangers online and talk to each other and know each other only by your instant messenger handle.
And literally nothing else.
And so it's believable in the context of the time period.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of cute that they actually form a very interesting relationship. They're living parallel lives at the moment while he's getting ready to open the mega store. And they actually have similar paths to work. And then to find out that he's going to put her out of business is like, oof.
Oh, terrible. Oh, and he comes into her store and doesn't reveal who he is. So then when they meet up again later, she's already miffed at him. Quite understandably, because it is a bit duplicitous of him to just say, hi, I'm Joe. Just Joe.
And he knew.
Yeah, he knew. Then their in-person relationship becomes quite antagonistic. And I think I enjoyed, like, it's a fun setup, you know, that they are falling in love with each other online while in person they really can't stand each other. I think there's a scene where they've just provoked each other at some sort of soiree.
Right.
And they both complaining to each other online about how much they pissed each other off, obviously not knowing that it's the same person.
And it's really fun. He comes in saying something to the effect of, do you ever feel like you're not even yourself and you get so angry? And she's like, wow, well, I don't, but let me tell you about this guy.
And I think as a setup for enemies to lovers, it's a good one. It's like quite realistic in some ways, that he's like a big chain store owner and she's this tiny little shop around the corner. So like that's interesting in terms of what it says about capitalism and all those fun things.
Right, this is before Amazon, so shops still even exist.
Oh goodness, yeah.
That he's even opening a mega store.
And that he's the big baddie.
Yeah.
Whereas now it's like, save Barnes and Noble, which is a bookstore for our international listeners or non-American listeners.
So like, you know, in those ways, I really do love the setup. I came in being really excited about the setup. The exposition is great. The lead up is great. Their meetup is really fun. Him keeping the secrets is even charming because again, it's Tom Hanks and he pulls it off.
Up to a point. It's charming up to a point.
And that point is at the grocery store, which we'll get to. Yeah, it really goes downhill from there.
That was what sent me over the edge. But we'll get into it. We have the overly amicable breakup, which just goes back to my little pet peeve about the romantic lead being in a relationship in any case, because Kathleen's boyfriend, Frank, was completely nonplussed.
They both agreed
about the breakup. It was like a non-breakup breakup. And so I was like, so what was the point of this relationship?
The point is they needed somebody to write in the papers to start all of the fuss. So it would...
She could have gotten a friend. Yeah. You could have written that into the plot in another way. It didn't have to be coming from her boyfriend.
Which is essentially like the function of the best friend in the She Loves Me version.
Yeah, see? They already did it.
Yeah, they fixed that. They're not in relationships. They just have best friends.
Which is fine.
And I think maybe the best friends are in a relationship or they
Ah.
end up as well. And so that's also really cute.
Yes.
Again, just a better version.
I want to watch that version. Because, like we've said, I really like the setup.
It's a really fun setup. The back and forth is funny. The slowly trying to fix the situation that, like, this guy's dug himself a hole
Yes.
by ruining things for this woman and then trying to fix it because he actually loves her is executed in a similar way, but it's less creepy. It's less manipulative in the musical version, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, then we have, this is a trope that I actually really like. The reading the book / watching the movie the other person loves.
I do too.
Like, I understand some people disliking it, but that takes time. And then you're doing it because you care about someone. So, like, that's a way of showing love.
Yeah, it's a genuine show of respect and admiration.
Yes, and appreciation. And I love, just like even with friendships, when a friend reads or watches something that I really love and talks to me about it. Like, it's great.
And I do really love the progression of even that trope through the course of the movie.
Yes.
Tom Hanks very clearly dislikes the book when he starts reading Pride and Prejudice. And by the end of the movie, he's genuinely quoting it and genuinely feels some sort of an affinity towards the characters, at least, in the ways that he's using it as examples to Meg Ryan's character.
So I think that's really sweet, especially because in this movie, they both are in the book business. So I thought that was a lovely use of that trope, and I think it was really well executed.
Yeah, so before we get into the shenanigans, some of the things that we would most certainly change are, like, just right off the bat, how antagonistic they are to each other, or maybe the antagonism being so... He's so condescending. He's so...
mean. Like, unnecessarily mean. I found at the party, she was understandably upset that he didn't reveal who he was. And his attitude towards it was just like, well, how can you be upset? Basically.
Right.
I'm not saying you lose it. Like, definitely keep them being antagonistic towards each other. But just, like, have her say something that it feels earned that he's so... mad at her, you know?
And so, like, the antagonism is really, really bad. And then, honestly, his flair for misogyny is so disgusting. It becomes absolutely unbearable. And that's when we were talking about the cash register scene at the grocery store.
Oh, that scene.
Meg Ryan accidentally gets into the line for cash only and she only has her card. Number one, her reaction in that line is really, really irritating.
Yes.
This is, again, another one of those things where I'm like, how does she live in New York and she's this much of a doormat? She acts like a pathetic, fragile flower throughout the entire movie, and I don't know why they did that to her. I don't know why.
She wouldn't have lost
I don't
it.
know why they wrote her character like this in New York City. I don't know how she is a business owner in New York City with this kind of personality. It doesn't make any sense to me. But the misogynistic tone, the toxic masculinity he brings when he shows up by her side, and then he speaks to the woman working the register. And
she's a child.
Yep. And she's like, come on, sweetheart. Can't you just take the card this one time? You know, for me. Oh, come on.
And it's supposed to read as charming. And it was so icky to watch. It's just before Thanksgiving, so it's mad busy. I really thought that he was going to come over and just, like, give her cash and she'd object and they'd have like a little back and forth.
And that would be that, and he would fix that with cash.
Yeah, and she's like, oh, I guess I owe you
Not
one.
that he would come over and be like, hey, baby, can't you just please take this
and
card
like
this one time?
shaking the card in her face and like, oh, you have a beautiful name. That's a beautiful name.
A wink, wink.
And it works. In this movie, in the world of this movie, that works.
The only reason why I would give that scene a pass at all is because it has the woman who played
Grey's Anatomy.
Callie Torres in Grey's Anatomy, but I think that they're non-binary now.
Yeah.
At the time, it's, you know, they identified as a woman at the time, and so it's just like a very clear gender dynamic, like gross scene that I hated so much. And
it was awful.
The fact that they put that actor through that makes me so irritated because I love that actor. So
that Rose had to come with this big smile as though she's been won over by Joe Fox's condescending rubbish. You could have that interaction of them being antagonistic with each other over the fact that now she owes him a favor because he helped her out. Oh, just the image of him shaking the visa in her face.
That's
Oh.
literally just the beginning of like the issues that then begin to really spiral out of control.
Mhm.
And so I'm happy that they kept the scene for the sake of Ramirez's career, because that was obviously like a really good starting place. I know obviously, you know, they probably had way more roles before that, but like that
Mhm.
seemed like a pretty big one. And so I'm glad that that role got kept, because that was
Yeah, it was a full-on
scene, and I'm really happy that they got to keep that on their resume and stuff. But otherwise, that scene is like absolute garbage. And you know, like it was right then that I started to realize, like maybe because the original story was written so long ago, maybe they're using some of the original tropes of the genre in
that
general.
makes a lot of sense.
And so I was thinking to myself, like, oh, if the original is from the turn of the 1900s, then perhaps commedia is still something that is referenced often, and the idea of the lovers being the most two-dimensional characters in any performance is very classic, right? They're just focused on one another, and they're just like very moody and whatever. And so like that's perhaps what the focus is, and that maybe that's why Meg Ryan's character is written so abysmally boring and two-dimensional. But it just like doesn't get better from here.
Yeah, and some of the other things that it's also products of the time, but hugely problematic is Joe's, is it his ex-stepmother, or who is this woman who full on assaults him twice?
I don't know. Is that not his active stepmother?
Yes, you're right. It is his current stepmother. Actually, full on moves her head when greeting him so that they kiss on the mouth, and it looked like a hard kiss.
Yeah, it was really creepy.
Not okay. Predatory.
Oh yeah, so like all of that predatory kissing, and then all of that scenes on the boat needed to go. The boo-hoo Cry Me a River, these guys have to go sit and stay in their yachts because they've broken up with these women.
Yeah, that wasn't great either.
The only redeeming quality about the boat scene is that at least we get to see his come to Jesus moment, where he realizes the mistakes of his father are perpetuating itself because he's never with someone that makes him happy, and he makes the conscious decision to be with someone who he's happy with instead of someone he thinks he's supposed to be with. And so that's one good plot point I actually did enjoy, so I appreciate that.
Yeah.
But basically everything at the entire end of the movie needed to leave.
And that would have shaved off a good half an hour of the runtime.
Which really was what it needed.
Yeah.
It needed to be shortened by at least 30 minutes, and most of that was the end.
Yeah, no, definitely. And speaking of that as well, when she's sick and he shows up at her apartment with a bunch of daisies, which, first of all, if it's your favorite flower, no hate to you, but whose favorite flower is a daisy?
Again, going to writing
Seriously.
the worst female character anyone's ever written.
A daisy.
Oh, God.
Even a rose, even if it's a rose, even if your favorite flower is a red rose, to me that makes more sense than it being a daisy.
Nobody's favorite flower is a daisy who's above the age of 12. Like,
Aw,
I don't know what it
Jasmine.
is, but yo.
Anyway, that point where he shows up at her door when she's sick, I really thought, okay, this is the grand romantic gesture.
That's where it needed to
He's
go.
gonna reveal that it's him.
Yeah, it needed to be there.
And she's gonna be upset, and then they're gonna somehow reconcile. I thought we were nearing the end of the movie.
He needed to have printouts of the emails.
Exactly.
I suggested to Jane that maybe the dog magically appears too, so that we end with the dog being there. Like,
can
he just
have the
knocks on
dog
the door
run
as
up.
well, and then we have a happy family.
You could still have that. Or even, he doesn't even need to have emails printed out. I suggested to Jasmine. So he brings her favorite flower, which is a daisy, blah, blah, blah. And then when he puts it down on the table and she says, "Oh, daisies, I love daisies. How did you know that?" And he says, "You told me," but she told him in the email. And
Correct.
then you have that moment with the reveal.
The realization.
That would be so much more emotionally satisfying to have that moment. And
Yep.
she's sick and confused, and she's like, "What? What do you mean I told you?" He's like, "You told me when you were writing your email." That's
And then
climax, the end.
we would have literally skipped all of the manipulative
Yes.
bullshit that he does for the next
That was
month
so
or two
unnecessary.
about him being really creepy and leading her on, and then contradicting the things he wrote in the email to make it seem
Yes.
like the email guy is a jerk, and then like trying to slowly worm his way into her life in this other way, even though he didn't need to do any of that.
and just playing with her.
Blah. Gross.
It's clear that she's falling for him in person now that they've finally started to become friends.
Right, and he just toys with her.
And so he tries to play the two versions of himself off against each other, like trying to make her essentially choose between in-person him and email him.
And it was fully unnecessary.
Maybe you could have still had that plot point if you see him really conflicted about not wanting to hurt her by revealing this.
Which they already did when he went to meet with her at the cafe and he doesn't stand her up.
Exactly, but that didn't pay off.
No, that one was perfect. You can see he feels bad in his apology for, quote, standing her up, even though he doesn't. He's very apologetic. I feel like we hit those notes there.
Yeah, so then we don't need this.
And then we should have left it. We don't need that whole ending. The entire manipulation over months is gross. I hate it so much. The toying with her is terrible.
What a horrible thing to do to someone.
Can't stand it. Makes me really, really uncomfortable. He keeps digging a hole, too. He digs and digs and digs that hole.
He makes it worse and worse.
And then she, like, cries with joy that it's him. Like, that's so... Like, that's abuse. And a woman who is going to be in a relationship like that is in an abusive relationship.
Especially after the months of essentially gaslighting that he's done, you know.
Yeah, it's a psychological abuse.
Yeah, I still could have understood the reaction that she was so delighted at him. Like, if that scene happened when she was sick, if that's where the movie ended, I would have been so mad. Like, you telling me for months I've been so torn and guilty and whatever over this guy online and you, and the whole time it's been you? That's not cool.
Yes. I think that would have cut off 20 minutes right there.
Anyway, I think we've made ourselves very clear as to what we would have cut. Because as we said, the premise and the setup of the movie, super cute, super fun. Meg Ryan and Tom Hanks, their chemistry
is great. They do many other rom-coms together.
Amazing. And you can see why. It's brilliant.
So let's hit those shenanigans.
There are a lot of them, some good and some bad, but this movie is scatterfull of shenanigans. One of my favorites is when they are in Kathleen's bookstore. Joe brings his aunt and his stepbrother. I can't really remember the relationship, but there's shenanigans around that as well. They're both young kids. And the boy can spell fox, but when Kathleen asks him to spell any other simple words, 3-letter words like cat and dog, he can't do it. And that's because the family surname is Fox. So that was very fun, even though I didn't like the fact Tom Hanks' character is being duplicitous, but I thought the scene was funny.
Yeah, doing that kind of like sneaky, hiding the truth, but it's surrounded by the fact that these kids are about to spill the beans is more funny and charming than it is weird.
Yeah.
So that scene I actually don't mind at all. I think the context of it makes it fine.
Yes. And it's right at the beginning, so I get that he doesn't want to right off the bat reveal who he is or have the kids reveal it. And he has to like try and explain himself that he's not here to snoop.
Yes.
Because he actually wasn't.
And like while we're in the bookstore, why don't the Foxes appreciate first editions or rare copies of books?
I know, I didn't understand.
I don't get that at all. I guess this isn't necessarily a straight up shenanigan, but I was delightfully surprised by there being a bunch of Dave fucking Chappelle.
Someone who I was happy to see was Heather Burns, who plays Christina, one of the shop workers. She's good at playing a best friend. She plays the best friend to Sandra Bullock twice.
Yes!
Both in 2 Weeks' Notice and in Miss Congeniality. And she's also a best friend who I would love to see as a leading lady. Another scene that I like, that we have talked about, is them talking online about how angry the other one made them in person. And I think that was just really well done, because you've just come off the scene where they're really fighting, really bickering, and now they're going to seek comfort from the person who's always there for them emotionally. And so while they're getting their emotional needs met, it's because they have each made that person so angry.
Yeah, and it's really, really fun. The ways that they're awful to each other.
It's just funny.
The caviar on the minced tuna plate or whatever that was.
Oh, that gave me so much ick.
He literally starts scooping up all the caviar, and Meg Ryan's character mentions to Tom Hanks, like, hey, that's a garnish. You're not meant to take all of it. And then he proceeds to scoop all of the caviar around the entire plate. He scoops it and puts it straight onto his plate. She promptly comes over and plucks it off of his plate with a spoon as well, which is like the most attitude she gives anyone, which I think was a Meg Ryan character choice and not something they wrote for her, because they wrote her two-dimensionally. So thank you, Meg Ryan, for giving your character personality when they let you down.
Other shenanigans is Kathleen's colleagues thinking that online Joe is the rooftop killer. So that there's the whole online bit when he stands her up that they say, oh, but the rooftop killer was arrested the same night, so maybe it's him.
Yeah, and it's such a fun setup because they literally start off the conversation with like, oh, you know what, maybe he got stuck in the subway.
It just
and
escalates.
Then, you know, the drafts in the subway are so insane that perhaps he got pulled into the tracks and he like died on his way trying to see you. Yeah, they make up this whole entire elaborate thing about why he could have possibly missed the date. And then the guy comes walking in and he's like, wait, last night? The rooftop killer was picked up right down the street from the cafe.
Bum, bum, bum.
And they entertain it for a moment, which is upsetting for her, but very funny for us.
Then, like, this was quite a good payoff, I think, that we've established very early on that we see that they live very close to each other. They go to the same places, you know, their lives are in parallel at the beginning. So then when they've met and don't like each other, you could easily be like, oh, New York is so big. How do they keep running into each other?
Right, because they're hiding in all the same places that they
Yes.
already ran into each other at the beginning montage.
Yes, exactly. So that was a very satisfying payoff as well. Like, it makes sense.
Oh, and I know we talked about the fallout from the date gone wrong or the standing up from the internet friend, but that scene itself I actually really kind of love. I couldn't remember if he actually went in or not, and so for a minute I really thought he fully stands her up. He realizes, oh, it's Kathleen, and you know, Dave Chappelle's character's like, well, I hope you like Kathleen because it's Kathleen, and so he's like, oh no, I can't go in there, and they walk away. They leave, and they show her in the restaurant. The waiter asks if she wants another tea. I really think she's getting fully stood up by both the person in her head and by Fox. And then when he does actually come in and makes it a whole thing about Fancy running into you here and kind of softening the blow a little bit, I did appreciate that. I'm glad he didn't totally walk.
Yeah.
Even if he didn't reveal himself in that moment.
At least he went.
It says something about his moral character that I really appreciate.
What irritated me about that scene was the scene prior where he's going on and saying, I'd be mad if I don't marry this woman because she's so amazing and how she makes me feel. I'm like, first of all, excuse me, sir, you are still in a relationship at this point and you're talking about like marrying this mystery woman. Secondly, he then proceeds to ask Dave Chappelle's character to check to make sure that she's not ugly.
Yeah, that I didn't love.
We've gone from I'm so ready to marry her, committed relationship aside, to like, oh, I'm so terrified that she's ugly.
Yeah, that's not great.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of those weird juxtapositions. It's like you set up something very, very sweet for the character, and then you let him down so strong by making him such a reprehensible pig.
Yeah. And I think it would, like, if it wasn't for the fact he said, oh, no matter what, I'm going to marry her because she's so amazing, immediately followed by check that she's not ugly. If they just left, can you check to see that she's not ugly? It's not the greatest of jokes, but to me, it's not as bad, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, I almost forgotten this one. So I'm going to jump back to kind of more in the beginning. But when they are at the bookstore that first time, when he's keeping it a secret and the kids are there, 4 books in the 90s for $70? That's like what?
The heck?
$200 in 2022 money or something? I don't know, maybe
Which is
more?
like close to 3,000 rand for 4 books.
For 4 books.
That's That's insane.
That's bonkers.
And he didn't even buy one of like the rare books or anything. It was just like some kids' books.
I understand the purpose is to highlight the fact, like, we're supposed to laugh at the small independent bookstore and
Yes.
cheer for, you know, the giant conglomerate in this moment. Like, oh, wow, that's saving me so much money. I'm so grateful for the mega store. But it's too much. You went too far.
Mhm.
It's not like that.
But it's too far.
It's not even like that now, if I were to go into Strand.
No. One last shenanigan, and it's just like such a throwaway thing, but it tickled me. But the fact that they have the most specific deal breakers, I was like, really? Out of everything, those are the deal breakers. It's in the montage where they're getting to know each other in person and falling in love as friends.
Oh,
and
right.
She says...
Can't have boats.
She says she could never be with someone who has a boat. And I can't remember what his was, but it was equally absurd.
Right, I can't be with someone who likes Joni Mitchell or something like that.
Oh, it was exactly that. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Well remembered. I was like, really? Out of everything. That's your deal breaker.
It's funny, though, because I think that they do it on purpose. She knows that he's rich and has a boat.
Okay.
He knows that she likes that already. But that's also, like, that was a fun shenanigan to show their relationship actually becoming, like, fun and not antagonistic.
Yes.
If I'm not friends with you, that's a mean thing to say and we're fighting. If I am friends with you, that was a funny thing to say and I'm laughing. You know what I mean? Like, relationship is so important.
So as much as we talked about it would have been better if the movie ended with, like, him coming to her apartment when she's sick, I did like aspects of the montage of them getting to know each other as friends because you get to see their chemistry. They drop like the full-on antagonism and they're like slowly falling in love in person. You can see their friendship. So I would have moved that montage to before her being sick. You know, like I would have kept that aspect because it's so charming.
I would have cut her being sick entirely. I would have had him showing up to the apartment with the flowers, her being up there pretending she's sick, him going up anyway and sneaking in, her not being sick, him finding her out, them joking, maybe having that boats and Joni Mitchell conversation, then maybe go on a walk and then end up in the park. Like,
yeah.
I would have set up that email before he left where she's like, well, you have to excuse me. I have to leave now because I'm meeting a friend. And he goes, okay. And so they leave and part ways. And then he actually shows up at the park too. That's what I would have done. Truncated, bang, bang, bong, and end scene. Roll credits.
Let us remake this movie.
That would have been a better ending instead of the manipulation. I know that it was an excuse to have their relationship bloom in a real way, but it doesn't read like that.
No.
It reads as
him manipulating her through a friendship. Yeah.
If anyone did that now, we would call it grooming, and we would tell her to get as far away as she could from him.
Exactly.
Oh boy. So I guess that brings us to so our fun fab fail. So I think we have differing opinions.
Yes, and that's okay.
And I think that's fine.
That's fine.
Speaking of fine.
so I know we have a fun fab fail, but I feel like for me this movie falls somewhere between fine and frustrating. And I think overall I'm going to rate it as frustrating because I was just so frustrated by what it could have been. By how much nostalgia I felt for the movie and how much I enjoyed the setup, how much I love Tom Hanks and Meg Ryan individually and then as a duo. I think it's amazing. But there were just too many other factors that prevented me from even awarding it a fun denotation. But because there was so much that I like about it, I can't quite fail it.
Yeah.
I don't know, like I can't fail it. So I'm going to create my own little category and say it was very frustrating. It's a frustrating watch.
I put it solidly as a fail for me. I think that the little bits that are fun are not good enough to make up for the blatant misogynism, the rude, terrible attitudes towards one another, the rambling plot that needed to wrap up 30 minutes earlier. Like, there's just too many things that are just impossibly bad. I think the movie is saved by its cast, and I think it's saved by the dialogue given to secondary characters, if it were to be saved by anything. But it's really brutal, and I think they did Meg Ryan dirty, giving her such a vanilla character. She really is. I don't know that I could describe that woman if she were real. She doesn't feel real.
Well, there you have it. And that leads us to our favorite segment. Give me the cheese, please.
Give me the cheese.
The cheese. Okay.
Okay. Ready?
3, 2, 1.
Mozzarella
Cheese
sticks. This is going in the same direction again.
This is going in the same direction? What do you mean?
Like how we have synergistic cheese.
Yes, we got so close to almost having the same one because I almost put that too.
Oh, really?
Yeah. But I ended up changing my mind, so go forth and explain.
Okay.
I think I went first last time.
Okay, so I picked mozzarella sticks because, much like how I feel about our heroine, they're bland. There might be some like crispy, crunchy dialogue here and there, but ultimately it's a pretty empty center. A mozzarella stick, in my opinion, is entirely saved by it being heavily sauced, which I felt like I needed to be in order to enjoy this movie. And this is like something that you would see on like a football game day, hanging out with your buds, right? And in that way, it feels a little misogynistic. I wanted to like fit in the football, like it's really bro-y in that way.
I don't have that association with mozzarella sticks, so this is interesting.
Well, we do here. Mozzarella sticks are like a bar grub, and I do love a mozzarella stick with some beer, but it feels like the kind of place where the male to female ratio is like 3-1. And this is a huge stretch, and so I know that it's really, really dumb, and you're gonna have to forgive me, but the final little bit will be the fact that it is the smallest bit phallic, and that's just my nod to the misogyny throughout this entire movie.
Okay, great. So my choice is no great as
No, I know. I was just
it's very well thought out and argued. It was funny.
Well, I'm being a total bee about all of this stuff, so I apologize that you're seeing me at my worst.
So my choice needs like a little bit of a history. So I chose cheese calls, which is not actually a cheese. It's a maize snack. I think you call them cheese puffs.
Cheese puffs.
Yeah, I think Cheetos has, the curly things. Like not the regular Cheetos.
No, I know.
Okay. So here at home we have cheese calls. We have a lot of different brands of this form of chip. But cheese calls was the original one, and it's something I grew up with in my childhood. And, at some point, like, I stopped eating them. And so much like this movie, cheese calls were a huge part of my childhood.
Aww.
And I have such, like, feelings of nostalgia and, like, love. And it's just, like, a standard staple, But then, as an adult, I decided, I'm feeling nostalgic. Let me have some cheese calls. And Jasmine, they did not taste the same. I wouldn't go so far as to say they were awful, but I was just left with like a very artificial and like weird taste in my mouth, which is kind of how I felt after watching this movie. I just kind of felt a little bit cheated, a little bit disappointed, and so I think like it just doesn't taste the same. So I still have an inclination to have some fondness towards cheese calls. Like I see a packet in the store and I'm like, cheese calls. The same way I feel towards this movie. It's like, it's You Got Mail, like Meg Ryan and Tom Hanks.
What could go wrong?
Yeah, what could go wrong? And it turns out a lot. I promise you are welcome to have this as your favorite movie, and if cheese calls is your favorite snack,
and you can tell us, please email us about how we're so wrong.
Yes, please do. Anyway, it's okay to acknowledge that things change, and that's fine. Your tastes develop, society develops. I don't have a problem with anyone picking up a bag of cheese calls or picking up this movie because it's comforting, and we all need a little bit of comfort, but I have changed. So, yeah, that's my pick.
And there it is. Cheese poofs.
There it is. Cheese curls. Well, there you have it. That was our discussion of You Got Mail.
Let us know your thoughts. Tell me about how you hate me now, or any other shenanigans we may have missed. Or
Mostly how we've ruined your favorite movie. Like, how dare we? How dare we?
or what cheese you think it is. You can follow us on Instagram at shenanigansensuepod, or you can email us at shenanigansensuepod@gmail.com.
We hope you'll join us next time. And until then, I wanted it to be you. I wanted it to be you so badly. Bye!
Yeah, my next project is to make a consolidated version of this movie that I actually like, because I wanted to like it.
Yes. Yes. Let's do it.
I'm just gonna make the cuts. Yeah, it'll be great. It'll be so much better. I promise.